Actually, it's not, buddy.
Did I say that during my budget?
I do that all. So neat, right?
All right, good evening, everybody. This is the Thursday, September 7th, 2023, Committee of the Whole Administration meeting. Call the meeting to order. We'll do roll call first. Rodney Riley is here. Ryan Curry.
Here.
Ryan Schneider.
Here.
Dave Wiltsey, not here right now. Ray Larson.
Here.
Brett Mueller.
Here.
Tom Wahlberg.
Here.
Lisa Patterson.
Here.
Dana Logston.
Here.
Sherry Branson.
Here.
Carl Johnson.
Here.
Marion Thornberry.
Here.
Have any minutes to approve tonight? We're going to move right on to approval of the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I'll move.
Second.
By Mr. Thornberry, seconded by Ms. Branson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we will move on to public comment. 5.1, public comment. I have a few here this evening. Let's start with Richard Wolf. Richard, if you would step up to the microphone, please. State your full name and address for the record. And you get 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Wolf, 9698 Spring Road, Garden Prairie. I'm going to bring up a subject that I brought up many times and many other people in the audience today, are these backyard rodeos with the abuse of steers. The steers are constantly abused. They've been prodded. Shark has videotaped and come up with the proof of where they've been prodded at various locations here in Boone County. That's just in the last couple of years. Just imagine when someone stands up here and tells you that they've been doing this for 25 years. How many animals have been abused over those 25 years that none of us know about? And Shark finds these in just a couple of years, tons of them, probably hundreds of them. They get prodded to get into the chute. They come out of the chute. They get their tail yanked to knock them to the ground. And sometimes they pull the skin right off of their tail. The steers get injured. They have no veterinary care. They get dragged out of the arenas, put in pens with others. And some of them even get left behind. This isn't the wild, wild west here in Boone County. And it's not the wild, wild west of Mexico. Boone County is better than this. It's time that this should be cleaned up. Concerts in A1 zoning continue to this day go on. I file complaints, I call complaints, but I'm not sure what a complaint is anymore. I come to the podium and do public speaking. It's very confusing because it seems like the chair keeps getting moved or the goalpost keeps getting moved. But these two issues with these backyard concerts in A1 and the rodeos should come to an end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. All right, next I have Mr. Steve Hendy. Steve, if you'd approach the microphone, your full name and address for the record, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Evening, Steve Hindy, 43W799 Oak Leaf Drive, Elburn. The following is a part of a July 20, 2023 email from Edward Ramirez, a Charo of the Mexican Federation of Charreria. Mr. Ramirez was commenting on the events in Boone County with a California animal activist named Eric Mills. Quote, "What is seen in the shark video you refer to are Charo wannabes. The writer's animal abuses would disqualify these individuals from competition for at least one chariota and possibly a sweeping year's suspension. Clubbing the horse with the shaft of a whip, punching the mount in the head, or drawing blood at the bit or flank with the spur are all prohibited as per the Charo rulebook. At official sanctioned chariotas, Coleaderos insist on fresh steers for each run, not 15 or 20. This is in contrast to Shark's accusation of the same steer being chased after some 15 or 20 times. Charo attire should be respected as consciously as a military uniform. Cowboy hats, cowboy boots, cowboy hats, baseball caps, short sleeves, tieless, chapless, any of these faults, and the offender would not be allowed near a lienzo. There's drinking on horseback in the video. Card-carrying Charos are subject to medical examination before each chariota, so anyone RUI, which I assume means riding under the influence, is automatically ostracized. But these are rules and regulations imposed by the Federation. It's close to impossible for dominant Charo organizations to monitor/control rogue jarapeos. I'm probably mispronouncing that are somewhat akin to an undisciplined pickup game and are the subject of the shark videos. Sharks should distinguish the Charo wannabes from the true animal welfare conscious Charo. Well, Mr. Ramirez, that's what I'm doing tonight. What is being allowed in Boone County is, according to card-carrying Charo Edward Ramirez, an aberration. The abuse appears to be as distasteful to him and his fellow Charos as it is to us, and I believe to most of you. Gracie Robles Farm will hold another of these cruel and unsanctioned events on Saturday, September 16th. When I asked her whether the event would be public or private at Tuesday's ad hoc committee meeting, she refused to answer. How telling. Charo Edward Ramirez calls them rogues and wannabes. All the talk about culture and tradition is just scamming by thugs who make lots of money at the expense of animals and Boone County's dignity. How much longer will they be allowed to sully the image of Boone County? The answer is only as long as you continue to allow it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next up, Brent Mueller. Brent? To the podium, please, and your full name and address for the record. You get 3.
Brent Mueller, 10636 Orth Road, Garden Prairie, Illinois. So tonight on the way to the board meeting, I stopped in at the solar field that's going in on Route 20. And when this board approved the permit, I do not believe we had a foundation plan in there, because the pictures that I've taken tonight, I will make sure that we get them to all the board members. But there is 4-foot hole dug with transformers and pipes and everything coming up. And I do not believe those were, so I'd like somebody to look into that through either the building department or the planning department and see where those plans were, because I did not see that. And I don't think we need to have that proceed any further into Boone County. Thank you.
Sure. All right, and then next up I have William Hyson. William, William, please, your full name and address for the record. You get 3 minutes, sir.
It's Boone County, pronounce it over.
William Pison, 9592 Denver Drive, Belvedere, Illinois. There are 2 pending felony charges against the county clerk and recorder. Her role is involved in many, if not a majority, of the county's financial transactions. In addition, her husband is the administrator of the building inspection. Are there any procedural changes that the county will implement to assure the public that the county will be secure from further allegations of theft and fraud? Will any specific duties of the clerk or her husband be modified? Will additional supervision be added to some financial transactions? Will the public be informed of any such actions? I think we deserve to know what you're going to do with such a horrendous case pending. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Seeing none, moving on. Mr. Larson, the administration meeting, would you take over, please, sir?
Thank you, Chairman Riley. 6.1, we have the Boone County Highway Engineer presentation. Mr. Crone.
Thank you. So the first item, Poplar Grove Road corridor, if you haven't seen it, we are planning on opening that, doing a small ribbon cutting quickly tomorrow morning at 10:30. So everything went pretty well. We're finishing up striping. In fact, they're out there striping now. It should be in pretty good shape. We did the stone, and essentially that was just under a $4 million project. So that was we did the bridge over the Kishwaukee River on Poplar Grove Road in 2020. So this is 23. Everything's kind of coming into play, and this is probably a generational improvement that's taking place, and we're right at the end of it. So it's something to be proud of for the community. We are currently paving out at Irene Road. That's in progress. In fact, they should be done in the next hour or two. And then we'll be done with asphalt for this year. We just got some minor things to finish up. Under planning, I'm going to be meeting with some folks from IDOT on back on Irene Road, I guess, or Poplar Grove Road. It didn't quite do what I was hoping. I don't know if some of the board members might recall we were applying for a ITEP grant. And that would have been providing a bike path on both sides. So, that was the ultimate case. We would have had, 4 grants. We would have got that one, but that one didn't come to fruition. So, and we had some public meetings, and we were going down that path, but unfortunately that was the one thing that fell through. We had TARP, DCO, and major bridge funds. And then the fourth one that we were really shooting for was the ITEP, and we didn't get that one. So we don't have bike paths. We do have it a little bit wider. So it's about 3 foot wider on each side. So it's a total of 6 foot wide, 6 foot additional feet. Now it's 30 feet. So, that's going to help all across the board for all users. The third item is the design build. This is a new legislation that passed in the last year. It allows counties to do a design build on projects. And so I'm meeting with some folks at Springfield. They're really pushing to try to have the locals do it before the state does. The state has the opportunity as well. So I'm hoping that we can maybe get some money from the state on a couple of projects. So I'll keep you informed as things progress on that. The fourth item was a grant. So we were awarded a grant about 2 weeks ago, a SPR grant, which is a statewide planning and research grant. So the grant was $276,000, I think. So that basically provides funding for part of my salary, assistant salary, some equipment. So we're hoping to, the grant is written so that we'll collect data and all of our infrastructure, all of our culverts, signs, striping, pavement, everything will be on a GIS platform. We'll be working with Tammy to put that on a GIS platform, and we'll kind of be more better at planning things. And that we've done a lot of improvements. So this is just the next step, and we were fortunate enough to get selected on a grant for that. So we'll be working on that. Hopefully I'll have a grant agreement to bring to the board in the next month or so. One other thing too that I forgot to put on there was we had a meeting. Board member Wahlberg attended I don't know, this past month over in Freeport. It was hosted by
Representative Cabello?
Cabello. Yep. Representative Cabello. And I can't speak, I try not to get too political on things, but he really followed through. We had a meeting a couple months ago, probably 3 months ago, up at the Manchester Township, talking about township's needs and infrastructure needs and financing for those infrastructure needs. And he said he was going to get some of the big dogs there, and he did. He got the Secretary of Transportation, and it was a really good meeting. And so hopefully things will come out of that. And as you're aware, we really support the townships, and by statute, I do need to provide assistance to the township. So that was a good step. So available for any questions.
Ms. Branson?
I do. You were talking a little bit about bike paths, and my understanding from talking with you and when IDOT a while back that a law was passed that requires them to put in bike paths along major highways and roadways that they put in. That's a new Illinois law. However, when I talked to them downstate, they told me that they have a policy that if the local jurisdiction won't take over the maintenance long-term of those bike paths, they have a policy of not putting them in, even though the law requires them to put them in. Do you have any idea how we can push the issue and push back against that policy in order to make them do this? Because it doesn't seem to me like they should be able to say, well, you made a law, but I'm going to ignore it.
So that's the law you're speaking of is called Complete Streets, and that's been on the books for, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years. And IDOT's policy is that the policy does not supersede the law. So IDOT's policy is that, they try to get under Complete Streets, they'll build it, and they try to get the local agencies, city, county, township, to take over the long-term maintenance of that with facility, bike path or sidewalk, whatever it is, within their right-of-way. As many of the counties, and Boone County has not taken over ownership or maintenance of any IDOT facilities. They've tried to get us to take over maintenance of their stop signs within the right-of-way when we have a county road coming into it. That, as far as I'm concerned, that's a real similar situation. We say, no, we're not going to maintain
Dump it on us.
Yeah, we're not going to maintain a facility or an infrastructure within your right of way. That's just kind of a slippery slope, and I don't think it's a good idea for us to go down that route. Their policy that is correct. Their policy is to try to do that. However, if we say no and we're not going to maintain something within your right of way to IDOT, they are still required to build or accommodate for the needs of non-motor vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists. So in the case of US 20, initially they were going to do a separate sidewalk or path, and then and have curb and gutter right at the 24-foot, right at the edge of the lanes, 2 12-foot lanes. They're going to have curb and gutter there. Now, according to IDOT's a couple of their statements, they're saying that because local agencies, they went to the city, they went to the park district, they went to the conservation district, and they went to the county. And none of those local agencies chose to maintain a system within IDOT's right of way. And so they went back to the drawing board and redesigned it. Instead of having a separate bike path, they're having it adjacent to the roadway. That's their choice, and that's their, whether that meets this Complete Streets or not, that's up to, the design review team to determine that.
I just wondered if there's a way that we can really push the issue, because I know if you look at the comprehensive plan, it just happens that I live on Distillery Road, so I'm pretty familiar with what's going on State Street. And with the casinos being built, they want to take State Street between Shaw Road and Appleton Road, make that into a 4-lane highway, and have extra lanes before the bike paths, which is not a bike path now, on the side of that. And the city's comprehensive plan is to put a school out on Distillery Road and Distillery and State, And that means you're going to have a lot of little kids with bicycles and walking along a 4-lane highway, which as a parent, there's no way in hell I'd let my kids walk there. I'd want them to have some distance in between, and a bike path would be a reasonable alternative. However, I don't know how to make the state do what the state don't want to do, and I also don't think the state should get away with pushing their responsibility off on our local government. You know, that should not be our debt if the law says they're required to build it.
And I agree with you. When we build something, we don't try to go to a township or go to, a park district or something to have them take those over within our right of way. I agree.
It's our responsibility to take care of our stuff and their responsibility to take care of their stuff. But common sense tells you don't put school-age children on a 4-lane highway. You keep them away from it.
And this very issue was actually, I believe, Board Member Wahlberg brought this up at the meeting when we met with the Secretary of Transportation. I actually got a call after that meeting too, and I think the next step, you're wondering what the next step is. I think we do probably hold another meeting. It was maybe a month or two ago, and there was some action taken out of that. There was some redesign. It's not too late to hold another meeting and probably have some of our state reps or senators call for another meeting with IDOT and look at that issue. I think might be a couple issues out there with 20 that we still want to provide input on. So I would say that'd be our best approach.
Yeah, well, the last I talked to the engineer downstate, his comment to me was nobody would pick up the payment of it and the maintenance of it. So we have moved on and we've redone our designs, and we're not going to keep paying to redesign things. And basically, in their opinion, it's a done deal. They're not doing it.
Yeah, and I don't buy that because Complete Streets does not have any, in the state statute, they've tried to put something in there about future maintenance and future taking over that, but it's not in the law. So there's no, their policy is, I can create a policy, or we could create a policy, that says, hey, but it's not supported by their policy is not supported by state statute. So
should we be going back to our senators and representatives, telling them they want them to amend that law to require them to not just build it, but insert the words and maintain?
That I would agree. I think that's a great idea.
I think that's something we need to do. But unfortunately, by the time we get all that done, it's too late for State Street.
Well, and there'll be another spot. And I know this is a recurring item that comes up. This comes up continuously. So, yeah.
And kudos to you for not taking the bait when they're trying to push stuff on you for the county to pick up the bill for things. Thank you for pushing back on that.
Well, I think I've had good support on that. So thank you.
Mr. Mueller.
Where's the ribbon cutting at on Poplar Grove Road?
It'll be at the bridge. You can park on both sides. So there's type 3 barricades on both sides, north and south side. So you can park either side. And then after that's done, we'll remove it. The whole thing will be open and everybody can.
Silent trucks will be waiting.
Well, I think somebody keeps removing it every few hours anyway. So I've been out there putting it back. So it'll be a good thing it's probably, that's that smirk. Okay.
Is that at 10 or 10:30?
10:30.
10:30.
Thank you.
Mr. Curry.
I attended a workshop for the Chamber of Commerce for tourism yesterday, and it was actually pretty decent. Obviously, Belvedere doesn't draw a lot of tourism. I'm probably not with the favored opinion of most, and I wish we would have a bike path. I mean, there's more things that we can do for kids. I'd rather have a bike lane off of a road than on a road. But I also understand that I don't want to maintain it as well. It was brought up that a couple counties have used and received a lot of grant money to maintain it, which could mean with that grant money, better equipment for our parks, whoever maintains the bike paths that we have now. I mean, we have bike paths out in the county all over. Who maintains those at the moment?
If you're talking about Long Prairie Trail, that's the Conservation District. So and the new one by the E-Buy, that's Conservation District.
So they maintain all of those, but they don't want to maintain one that goes that way, is what I'm getting.
Yeah,
nobody out in the middle of the country, but we're bitching and moaning about one that goes from Belvedere to Rockford. That's the issue I have. If there are grants available that we could use to utilize better equipment to clear those. We could probably save a lot of taxpayer money or fees that we had to get better equipment and maintain those just like they're maintaining all. I mean, it feels like we're trying to put bike paths all over the county. At the moment, we have this last summer, which is great because it gives people something to go out and exercise and ride bikes and do it. And then all of a sudden this kind of gets, it's like, the brakes are pumped. So help me understand what the difference is.
Yeah, so the difference is right away, who owns the land. So if we agree to maintain something in IDOT's right away, we have to maintain it to their standards. And so, if they come in and say, hey, you need to have guardrail or you need to have, ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't, if there's a settlement or a root that causes a heave or something like that, we would be on, a different maintenance cycle and responsibilities, because, we're kind of at the whim of IDOT then because it's on their right of way. So
Pay for it, but we maintain it.
that's what they're asking. Yeah. They would pay for the capital cost, the installation, and then they would ask for somebody else to maintain it for indefinitely.
They wouldn't add positions. So we say this would be 2 full-time positions at the conservation district, to maintain them. There's nothing we can work in there to maintain and draw in 2 jobs that would maintain that area and just be full-time.
I think that general question was asked and there was no offering. So I would be interested to know more about the grants that you were speaking of. And I'm not familiar with those. I don't focus on bike paths. So, I'm sure there's stuff out there.
It was just somebody speaking, so I don't know a lot of it that was bringing it up. I think it was McKenna or one of the neighboring counties.
And we were close, I think, to trying to come up with some type of an agreement, and there might be some, because this goes in front of Park District, the Belvedere Township Park District. It goes in front of their property or adjacent to their property. It goes adjacent to Conservation District property, and it will actually go through the city of Belvedere. So there's a lot of different jurisdictions. We don't happen to have any county roads right there, but I'm not to say that we couldn't certainly participate somehow. I don't know how that would be, but I think that there was, and we were working down that route to figure out what kind of cooperation, like multi-agency cooperation we could do to make this thing happen. But it just never happened. So.
I'm sure they're not easy to deal with. Thank you.
Mr. Riley?
Just real quick, I want to just take a minute and thank Tom for attending that IDOT meeting. I was on vacation that week, and Ryan, thank you again for going to the chamber meeting. Time's been kind of occupied lately, so I haven't been able to attend a couple of those issues. I'm not gonna be able to make the ribbon cutting tomorrow. I know Ryan's gonna represent me tomorrow. Any of the board members that can make it tomorrow at 10:30, though, please, by all means, try to be there and have fun with that. I appreciate it. Thanks, Justin.
Okay, we'll let Mr. Thornberry.
Who controls the intersection of Logan Avenue and Belvedere Genoma Road?
So Logan is county from Belvedere Road out to 20 in front of Farm and Fleet. That is a county route. The north-south section is state, and then the west portion is city. So you got 3 agencies there. So 50%. And we do this on signals quite often, is that, if you have a signal at an intersection and you've got one leg of that intersection and another jurisdiction's got 3, then you got 25% of the responsibility of that intersection. So, but yeah, so that's north-south is state, west is city, east is county.
I just wonder because it keeps getting worse and worse.
So
that intersection has got to be one of the worst intersections we got as far as surfacing we have in town.
Signals or pavement condition?
Pavement.
Pavement, okay. I know that there was a, at the southwest corner, there was a inlet storm sewer structure that the city and the state were going back and forth on. It was a low area and causing a lot of issues with drainage and with cars, not very smooth. So, but I'll reach out to the other two agencies and see what, if there's anything scheduled to be done there, or, what's the next step.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Justin.
Any other questions for Mr. Carl? All right. On to 6.2, Public Safety, Boone County Sheriff Young, please.
All right, good evening. Great job, Justin. Great news. Obviously with Poplar Grove Road open, that's a big one for all of us, I'm sure. Count how many emails, phone calls, text messages I had when we were going to open that. So finally, the day has come. So, all right. The numbers for the Sheriff's Department on the patrol side, our time budget numbers, budget 230,000. What we got left? 3 months to go now. We're at 236,446. So we're 6,446 in the hole. For corrections, we budget 180,000 for overtime. We're at 218,233. So at the current point, we're 38,233 in the hole. Just to touch on that, I ran just a few numbers because I know you got a lot going on tonight. In June of 2023, we spent 27,000 in overtime and corrections. In December of 2022, which is this fiscal year, we spent 26,000. In January of 2023, we spent 25,000. I think I mentioned this last month that we made some corrections in there, some additions. We eliminated direct supervision. Jail has been, it opened in, I believe, 2002. We eliminated that and running the numbers for August, which is not August 1st, but it's like August 5th. We spent 15,000 in overtime. So we are seeing a definite decrease in the amount of overtime we're spending monthly by eliminating direct supervision. And again, if you want to contact me and I can go over all that stuff, is how our corrections operates, what direct supervision is, what we're doing now. I'll be glad to speak to any on that. For dispatch, we budget 96,000. We're at 117,123. So we're $21,123 in the hole. So as you can see, all those budgets for overtime are struggling at this point with 3 months to go. It all comes back to staffing on the patrol side, which is, it's an honor to stand in front of you and say that we are currently full staffed on the patrol side. I think maybe I've mentioned this to you. I know I've mentioned it to many that for the next 3 months, I know we got some that are talking about retiring after the first of the year, but I know I have a couple conferences coming up, a lot of training, a lot of meetings with sheriffs and chiefs, and I can brag that our patrol section is full staff. That's a great honor for you guys, for this county, for me, obviously, to stand in front of them, in front of you, in front of any citizen in Boone County right now to let them know, because that comes from years and years of good county boards that have put good things together for these deputies, and that goes from a good contract to good equipment to just good people that work together. They all recruit each other. They all recruit each other to stay. Yes, we have lost some that went for bigger paychecks. We have plenty others that probably could go for other bigger paychecks, but sometimes it's the environment. And that's just truly an honor to have a full staff. But with that, obviously, we still have 3 that are in the FTO process and 1 that we just sent off to the academy a couple weeks ago. So we are a full staff. We still have 4 in training that are not on their own yet. For corrections, we're still with the 8 unfilled positions. So we're 8 short in corrections. For dispatch, we're currently down 2 dispatchers. 1 spot should be filled within the next week, 10 days. And the second one, they're in the process of doing interviews right now. So hopefully within the next month, maybe when I meet with you in October, we'll have that spot filled. So We're definitely going to get there in the dispatch center shortly. So that definitely will help those numbers next fiscal year. A little bit about the month of August. On August 10th, like I mentioned, we had 2 individuals graduate from the Sauk Valley Police Academy, Wyatt Savine and Victor Para. So they both graduated. They're both local kids that live in the county, and they started their FTO process, which will take probably the next 4 or 5 months. On August 18th, we had our swearing in for our new Sergeant Adam Stark. He is currently working the day shift as a patrol sergeant. And then we also swore in our new deputy that's at the academy that brought us the full staff, and that's Thomas Wenger. He's a Belvedere North graduate. He's actually our first Belvedere North graduate that is part of the Sheriff's Department. And he also graduated from Concordia University with a criminal justice degree. Once again, we had a very busy August. We were up approximately 100 calls from last year. We had 2,611 calls for service compared to the 2,500 we had in August of 2022. A couple things that we did. Obviously, we attended the National Night Out at Candlewick. I know Dave's not here, but we attended the National Night Out that Candlewick hosts every year. Obviously, we had the Boone County Fair. I put on board docs the memo that I'll send off to the fair board, and you can see that we spent approximately $19,000 in overtime just the week of the fair. We had 2 vehicle fatalities in the month of August. The first one was on August 11th, Friday morning, at approximately 1 a.m. at the intersection of Route 76 and Woodstock. That was a car versus motorcycle. Our second one was on Route 76 in Manchester. That was on Saturday, August 26th at approximately 3 a.m. Just to let you know that 2 individuals from both cases were charged with DUIs in both those cases. So with that, that's all I have for you for tonight. Any questions?
Mr. Hanson?
Yeah, Sheriff, I appreciate what you do for us, but it's kind of hard to keep up with all the numbers when your information doesn't make it onto board docs. Could we maybe get that corrected so that we can review this?
Sure. Yeah, it's just,
Appreciate that.
we're in the red. Just understand we're in the red. But
I know, but
Yeah.
it's budget season and we got to have hard numbers and there's a whole lot of numbers coming at us in a short period of time.
yeah, I usually don't get them. I'll see. But yeah, I usually run those in the afternoon today. And I know Michelle wants them like on Monday or Tuesday. Jennifer doesn't get me the numbers quick enough, but we can try. So it's
It needs
just a matter of getting numbers. So I can try.
hours before the meeting.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Things are required to be put on board docs 48 hours prior.
Right, and I just don't get them. I was in my office about 5:05 today, putting them together, so.
Busy.
Yep.
I get that, and I'm not dogging on you and pressuring.
Sure.
I'm just trying to keep up with the numbers that we have to keep up with.
Not good.
They never are.
No.
Patterson?
Can you repeat the calls that you had, the 2022 versus 2023?
2,600 in August of 2023, 2,500 in August of 2022.
Mr. Riley?
That was a scanner and you get it all installed and all.
Yeah, the scanner is all set up. Obviously, we got to go through, put all the correctional officers through the training on that, and that's set up, I believe, end of October.
Good.
So, but yeah, everything's set up. So, yeah, again, so that'll be a good addition to corrections.
Thornberry?
Have you received money from the fair board for your participation in the fair?
Yes, we do. Yes. Yes.
I know at one time we paid the auxiliary, not the police department or the sheriff's department.
Yeah, no, the fair board does submit a check to us. I can check with Kurt and see when we get that. It does come to us. And then obviously then we turn that over to Kurt and to general fund. Yes. And I think it's approximately $10,000 that they reimburse the county for our services out there. But again, that fair board, I'm not sure if it's 10,000 every year or if they base it off certain numbers that we submit to them. That I don't know. So yeah, but they do reimburse us. And I'll check with either Kurt or Lyle and see when that check normally comes. I'm not sure when the fair board meets after the fair, if it's.
Wednesday of every month.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no quarterly department presentations. Is there any questions on the written monthly departmental reports / updates? To the new business end, I need a motion to approve the claims with the understanding that Carl Johnson abstains from voting on all claims presented by William Charles, Northern Illinois Service Company, Core and Maine, all claims submitted by the Boone County Highway Department, and all claims by any county department regarding sewage, stormwater, construction, and excavation. Motion. Brian. I forgot Schneider.
I know.
Motion by Schneider. I know his first name.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Patterson. Mr. Johnson.
Just let the board know that I'm going to abstain on this vote just because there's several companies in here that do business with my company in various capacities, so I'm just going to abstain.
All in favor, say aye.
Got to do the roll call.
The roll call, please.
All right. Rodney Riley, yes. Brian Curry,
Yes.
Brian Schneider,
Yes.
Ray Larson,
Aye.
Brett Mueller,
Yes.
Wahlberg,
Yes.
Elisa Patterson,
Yes.
Dana Logston,
Yes.
Sherry Branson,
Yes.
Marion Thornberry,
Yes.
Carl abstain.
Abstain.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
9.2 raffles. Do we have to vote on these?
No,
We just, to the county board.
you just check to see if there's any that have to have appearance here.
All good. 9.3, I need a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Sheriff's Department Patrol Unit.
So moved.
Motion, very seconded by Mr. Curry. Any discussion? Okay.
At committee, right? Yeah. Voice vote's fine.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. 9.4, I need a motion to amendments to section 2, 11, and 20 of the Boone County personnel policy and create a new section 26.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Curry, seconded by Mr. Mueller. Okay, discussion. Ms. Tobin.
So most of these changes are ones that I've talked about before that were coming forward. Most of them have to do with vacation time and vacation schedules based on vacation each employee is in. What you see before you basically highlights what most people are currently doing right now and have been for a long time. It just hasn't matched our personnel policy, especially with it getting more difficult to recruit and retain employees, especially your professional employees. It's pretty necessary to have a solid vacation schedule, in order to get people to come here. The biggest change you'll probably see, your B1 employees, basically it just highlights and breaks it down more that it's also including your department heads and your deputy county administrator. They would be 15 days of vacation on their date of hire. The biggest change is that after 10 years, that would actually go to the 20 days rather than after 15 years, because you have a lot of your department heads hired in with 3 weeks vacation. They have to be here 15 years before they get their 4th week. And that's really not the way most municipalities' personnel policies are anymore. Your other employees, yes, still the 15 years before they get that 4th week. But for your department heads, really it's more realistic after 10 years to receive that 4th week. So that's the biggest change here. The other change you'll see, your C1 employees, which are your full-time hourly, rather than them waiting an entire year to receive any vacation time, which it's really not realistic anymore, especially if anybody has a job and we're asking them to come here to ask them to wait an entire year before they got vacation. So the intent would be a 90-day probation, and then they would receive 10 days. And everything else would stay the same. And then your C2, which are your salaried full-time professional employees, would receive those 10 days on the date of hire, which is basically what we've been doing already. So we're just trying to clean it up to match the way we have been operating. The other change you'll see if you scroll down a little farther on page 12, you'll see where I took out the word accrued about halfway down the page, as it talks about when people payment here at the county, payment for any accrued vacation. It's come to light that that's not the intent. Accrued, people are thinking it's not just what they have on the books, but what they've accrued throughout that year in addition, and that's not the intent. The intent is for them just to be paid out what's in their bank. So clean that language up a little bit. Let's see, the other change, section 20, page 21, just cross out the sentence of no blue jeans. There's lots of offices that have Jean Friday. It just makes more sense to just leave it that employees shall dress in a neat, clean, presentable, and professional manner. I don't think we need the no blue jeans in there anymore. And last but not least, on page 34, just create sections 26 for telecommuting. Very, very basic. I don't want to, sometimes less is more. I didn't want to go into too much depth on it, but at least put something in our policy regarding it. It's a management option. There's no guarantee for the opportunity, and basically just what their expectations would be in their work environment and home, and the equipment, the care of the county provided equipment, maintaining the confidentiality of county information and documents, and that the Boone County IT would have the oversight of all county issued equipment. So kind of basic, but it at least gives us something on the books. I know that was a lot, sorry. I'll answer any questions.
Ms. Branson?
I want to talk to you a little bit about section 20 with the dress code. By crossing out no blue jeans or shorts shall be worn, is that to be interpreted as though as now our staff can start wearing shorts or in jeans to work?
No, it's not. I mean, it's by department. A neat, clean, presentable, professional manner would not be wearing shorts to work. I don't think we need to put that in there. But the no blue jeans isn't realistic either. Most of our departments wear jeans on Friday.
I get that. I just thought it'd be very unprofessional to be having people come to work on wearing shorts,
Right. I just took out that whole sentence because I think the first sentence speaks for it all. That, to me, shorts would not be a professional manner, so that wouldn't be allowed anyway.
Okay. Just checking on the intent.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't saying that everybody can wear shorts to work.
Well, I thought maybe there was a reason they put it in there. Somebody had to have tried before they put it in there.
They could have, but I think that first sentence, covers everything.
Aaron wears jean shorts. Short ones.
Neither confirm nor deny.
He's not wearing shorts to work, I'll tell you that.
Taking into work with shorts on.
Anybody else have a say on this?
Questions?
Today's definition of shorts and yesterday's definition of shorts are two entirely different definitions.
There's very different levels of short.
Anybody else have any discussion on this? I'd just like to add section 26. I don't agree with putting this into our county code during the pandemic. Obviously, it's like an emergency to let people work from home. People are trying to make it a standard, basically, and I just don't agree with it. So motion to amend and remove section 26 in its entirety. Mr. Thornberry?
I would have to disagree on your objection.
That's fine, you can just motion.
The only, I know,
We're not debating, we're still waiting for a second or not.
Nobody seconds it, there's no need to discuss it.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Curry. Mr. Thornberry?
like I said, I know a lot of people that work from home. And I think that if Boone County is gonna allow people to work from home, then they need to go and put the communication devices into those people's homes, because that's what most of the companies who allow working from home do. They don't let them work from home on their home computers. They don't let them work from home using their smartphones. They take and they put in computers in their homes, and they give them connections to their servers so that they can work from home just like they could work from here. So I think this needs to stay in there. Maybe add some stuff saying if the department heads are gonna allow this, then the department head has to authorize the installation of company computer systems.
Branson?
I believe we just hired someone from Becky's department that works part-time from home, didn't we?
I have two in my office.
Yeah, because they have family needs that needed to be met. And for that reason, I would certainly think we would need this included to accommodate those people. I really don't want to have people working within our county that are working from home. But I think given the fact that we just hired somebody, we don't want to change our policies so that she can't continue to work for us.
Curry?
Yeah, I just think, it has been, I see your point, and I do want people to come to work. I think seeing people in face working is great. Years ago, I worked for the Department of Defense in North Chicago. I worked from home 3 days a week. We had our own laptops, we had SIPRnet, we had secured lines, we had everything that we needed. And it worked great. I like that there's the option there. I don't think it's going to be abused. I think department heads will manage this well and want people in, and there's emergencies and families need different needs. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I think that we have to depend on our department heads to manage and trust that they'll do so accordingly and balance that in-face work time. So.
Any other discussion? So we're voting on the motion to remove section 26.
Vote on your motion for the amendment.
The amended motion to amend for section 26. So there's no other discussion? All those in favor?
Just a clarification, if we're gonna vote, a no vote means it stays in?
Correct.
Oh, wait.
No, you're voting, a motion was made to remove that section. So a yes vote would be in the affirmative. So a yes vote would remove section 26. A no vote would keep section 26.
Exactly. Yep. Anybody else?
Any other discussion or questions? Now everybody understands the motion now. To amend. Okay, seeing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
The motion fails. Any other discussion on the original motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. On to 9.5, discussion allocation of opioid settlement funds.
Good evening. Amanda Meal should be on, as well as Amy Gallineau. We're all on the executive board of CORE. We're bringing this forth to the board just for a discussion tonight to get some feedback from the board. I think in the past we have discussed how Boone County has received money in the opioid settlements. I had attached to this agenda item a document from the settlements of where that money must be spent. So we can't just add it to the general fund. We can't spend it on whatever the county desires. It has to be spent according to this document. The core program, through their various grants, which I also put on your desks this evening, a handout describing all the different programs that are offered and the timelines of the grant. And these programs are basically what is allowed for the settlement money to be spent. Now, we also have outside counsel on these cases. I did speak with them. As of now, there's not a requirement to spend these funds within a certain time frame. However, eventually the money does need to be spent, and they foresee maybe down the line having some guidelines of when those funds must be spent. Typically, governments can't just hold on to money and not spend it on the purpose on which it was intended, which is to serve our community, to help with these different strategies to combat the opioid epidemic. So our proposal, and just trying to get some feedback from the board here, is to allow the core program to supplement what they're already doing within the community with these funds, basically on a basis on which a grant isn't covering something, or some type of emergency basis, with a vote from the executive board, and then an accounting to the county board as to where those funds were spent. Clearly, the MOU would lay out all the guidelines as to, that it has to be spent on these items, et cetera. It just seemed like, in discussing some various needs that have come up, and maybe Amanda, I know she only has a few more minutes here. In the past, there's been things like there hasn't been coverage for the grant over a certain period. We're awarded the grant, but the funds haven't come in yet. We've come to the board to ask for coverage during that time. Well, this would be something that we could use that for, and possibly then reimburse the settlement money, things of that nature. I don't know if Amanda or Amy want to say anything before they need to get off here.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Amanda, or do you have anything to add?
No, I guess maybe not. Maybe I guess they're still both on there.
I have no additional information.
Okay.
About either, Tricia, I would just echo what you said. I think for coverage in between grants, or if we had a situation where a grant ran out and we were looking for sustainability options, that this would be a good alternative to utilize. At this time, all the grants are covering the majority of the expenses, but there may come a time where we would need to have some funding locally to supplement or carry out some of the programming. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson? Or wait, sorry, go ahead, Ms. Smith.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't know if the board had any questions or any comments about this proposal.
I think Mr. Curry, didn't you have something first?
No, I just want to say, in the past, you have managed the funds well. You have utilized grants, and I think the should stay under that control. And I think that's what you proposed, I think is very fair and agreed. So I would support what you guys recommend and propose that money is spent to cover those, and approved at times, and saving money by utilizing this to balance that. So I would agree with that.
Mr. Johnson.
If I could ask the state's attorney a question, and perhaps Amy Gallivan also. Are these funds something that the drug court could use? I know that's been a pretty successful program for its purposes and what it's done. Or is this too much money, or is it, I know we get grants for a lot of that, but how would this kind of money help affect that program?
So, good evening. This is Amy Gallivan with the Boone County Probation Department. The drug court salary now is covered by OIC. We are reimbursed for Jenny Crotchett's salary. And to run the program, we receive money from Adult Redeploy, and we are not and have not been in a position recently to need these funds.
probably about 10 years ago, we had a time where we did have a lapse where we had to come to the county board and ask the county board to cover funding until we were reimbursed. And once we were reimbursed, then we reimbursed the county.
Mr. Johnson.
So we're not in a position where we're rejecting individuals who could potentially utilize drug court for lack of funding.
No, we are not.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Branson?
You know, I love acronyms and I hate acronyms because I have no idea what an MOU is.
Memorandum of understanding.
Can somebody tell me what it is?
Memorandum of understanding.
Memorandum of understanding. Thank you. That makes more sense.
Sorry about that.
No, I read it a couple of times and I found a definition of it, so I was kind of confused by it. But I have to tell you, I'm very pleased with the way the health department has managed numerous grants over the years. And I would have no problems whatsoever approving this the way that it is proposed.
Mr. Wahlberg?
Yes, yeah, I'd like to compliment you on this. I support this idea. I think this is a wonderful use of these funds.
Mr. Thornberry?
I agree with Mr. Walter, especially the fact that all of the people who are legally, technically responsible are working together to come up with this. I think it's a great idea. And I don't think we could come up with a better way to use this money.
Okay. So it seems like consensus is that this is the best idea to use these funds. Do we need to do anything else with this at this
Just
time?
a discussion tonight.
Just correct. And then what we'll do now that the board is supportive, I will draft that memorandum of understanding, and then it will probably appear on October's monthly meetings. We just didn't want to draft something if the board was opposed to the idea. So we'll get that on the next month's agenda. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on to 9.6. I need a motion to approve ordinance 23-23, amending the Boone County Code, Chapter 62, Planning.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Mueller.
Second.
By Mr. Curry.
I just here for questions with regards to the red line changes that are proposed, actually blue lined, they're not red lined, but yes, as part of the evaluation of the sections of the county code, the zoning ordinance and subdivision, staff is looking at bringing documents and policies up to date, identifying inconsistencies, and so therefore these are some of the proposed changes and the beginning steps of doing so. Really, this is a section of the county code, and because it's a section of the county code that I'm proposing changes to, it's under the authority of the county board. I can detail them out if you'd like, or if you have any questions.
I'm not sure if that's necessary at the moment. Discussion. No questions? Mr. Wall?
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Yeah, Ms. Roberts, if you could hit the high notes on this, because there's a lot of stuff here that, yeah, is pretty.
Sure. So
there's probably a couple of things. Make sure I'm not missing anything here.
Sure. So the first two sections are being proposed as removed. The developmental criteria. This is criteria that I've not seen, and I'm not sure that I've found before. So I think it's best to remove it from the ordinance. If it's something we want to revisit down the road and create, then of course we can put it back in. But for now, it's not really being utilized. So I was proposing that being removed, as well as the executive planning committee that was referencing when the planning was combined with the city. All of this language has to do with that, and that is no longer the case. So that is being proposed as being removed. And then the powers and duties of the Regional Planning Commission. These are powers and duties that are set out in the state statute. So it's still the ability to utilize them if needed, but some of the functions that are in the county code that are being presented as like number 7 has to do with the regional planning commission themselves having their own annual budget. The way we operate is the planning department has the budget, and if they were to need some, that would be done so through the planning budget, not necessarily their own budget. That's similarly the number 12 and 13. And that's it.
Mr. Thornberry, did you still have something?
Yeah, I had a question at the 62-1, the development criteria. Based on what I read here, I'm not sure what I'm understanding here, because this has to do with code changes like R1 and R2. If we take this out of here, how do we go about code changes?
The code changes still remain. This is just a development criteria that was referenced from 79 and 81, 1979, 78, 81, that I don't use, or I'm not familiar with, or I've not seen. So this language hasn't been changed in some time. It doesn't mean that the process would change. We still have the map amendments and things of that nature that have to go through the process. This is to do with some kind of criteria in addition to that was apparently utilized a long time ago.
Mr. Riley?
Yeah, Jesse, you did a great job here. I know been one of your tasks since you've been with us now, getting this thing straightened out and streamlining things. And just wanted to say, appreciate that and did a nice job here.
Mr. Wahlberg?
I guess I kind of see a little bit where Mr. Thornberry's at. I mean, there's a little bit of a catch-22 here. If you get down in reading in that about the criteria shall be reviewed periodically, and boom, we're going to strike that. But maybe that's just semantics. I don't know. We can review anything at any time, so I don't know. I'm a little unsure here.
Ms. Patterson?
If I'm understanding it, this is language that's not being used, that's currently in there. And if it's not being used, it's stuff that adds confusion. So when somebody is trying to dissect things, this adds to minutia that doesn't need to be backtracked or anything like that. So cleaning up.
That's sort of where I'm coming from, is some housekeeping.
Yep.
Any other discussion there? Is this also reviewed by the state's attorney?
Yes.
Changes? Yes. Any other discussion? Okay, so we have the motion on the floor here and no further discussion. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I think stay here.
I'm staying here.
9.7 fiscal year 2024 planning department budget presentation. Ms. Roberts.
Yes, thank you. Becky, did you want to?
I was just going to preface before all the budgets tonight that, everybody's been asked to, not go through every single line item, just kind of hit the high points. Anywhere there's any big changes, their capital. So if there's anything additional, you feel free to ask any questions, but they've been asked to try and keep it short and sweet and to the point.
Yes, so with that said, the planning office does operate with two funds. The first is number 77, which is the Zoning Board of Appeals Fund. Generally, that has to do with reimbursements for anything the Zoning Board of Appeals is utilizing, whether it be travel and their per diem. It is proposed as going up because there is some recommendation from staff and some idea that we will hope to add 2 more members to the Zoning Board of Appeals that will become alternates. So with that being said, that would increase the per diems for their attendance, and that's why that's going up. As it relates to the planning fund, there are a few items that are being proposed as part of the initiatives. The first being the planning and zoning technician, which is a full-time position that is being proposed to share with the building department. The position is proposed to manage on the planning side of things, they're proposed to manage various board minutes, mailings, agendas, and filings, along with administration of the cloud permit, which is the next initiative that I'm requesting. The cloud permit is a planning module that's similar to what is being utilized by the building department at this time, and they've had a lot of good feedback, and they really are advocating for that type of permitting system. And so there's a planning module that they have that they can offer, and we've done some investigating on that planning module, and we're looking to have that be a part of our process, which would allow for the applicants to view and an opportunity to have all the items in one location and streamline the application process for the planning department. And then finally, we are requesting as part of the capital outlay for fiscal 2023, there was an allotment for zoning ordinance rewrite. And as part of that zoning ordinance rewrite, which hasn't gone through because of the staffing situation, we are also requesting the additional $50,000 for the comprehensive plan being done so in conjunction with the zoning and subdivision ordinance revision. Staff's looking to update the zoning code as was stated last year, along with the subdivision ordinance, and create what we call a UDO, which is a Unified Development Ordinance. And then along with that, the evaluation and revision of the comprehensive land use plan, some of the areas that could use attention with the plan document. I have a list of some areas if you have any questions, but that's what we're requesting. I think I hit all the items.
Mr. Mueller, or did you have something else?
Nope, that's it. Yep.
Mr. Mueller?
So on the last page of the Zoning Board of Appeals, General Fund, Department 77, you have in the notes per diem at $40 a meeting, approximately 12 meetings a month.
Mm-hmm.
So you do 12 meetings a month?
A year.
A year. I guess. Yes. Apologize.
On that.
Get you junior.
Thanks. All right. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. I'd just like to say that everything on this all looks good to me, except I'm not really for hiring another full-time position. I'm not seeing a dire necessity for this, and I'm just not for that. Mr. Thornberry?
In conjunction with what you just said, if we're wanting to add another position that's been vacant for 13 years, why has it been vacant for 13 years?
I could probably
Becky can assist, just because this is a position that's being shared by planning and building, like a half position, I guess.
Right. So as part of the building department budget, which is next, I was going to be walking through that since Drew will not be here. But as part of his request, it has been something that's been needed for a while. I think during the recession, they were able to make it work with only 2 people. There wasn't as much building going on. The last few years, it has obviously intensified. The cloud permit software definitely helps, but your foot traffic, and I can tell you, having only 2 people in that office is extremely difficult. The first thing people see when they walk in the building is a dark office, and I can't stand it. it's not inviting to the building, and it's not their fault. We have one person that 90% of his day is in the field and another one who has to be in the field sometimes. And if somebody's off work or at lunch, there's a sign on the door and it's dark. And it's really time to fill that position and have another staff person over there. The other thing is, and you'll see in some of Drew's comments, you now have department heads doing administrative work. Jessie does her own minutes, a lot of basic research. Do you want to pay your planner to plan, or do you want to pay for them to do minutes? Same along the lines with Drew. He'll be in the middle of a plan review. The phone rings, there goes 30 minutes. So you really, it's up to you to decide, what do you want your professional employees to do? Do you want them to be doing their job, or do you want them to be doing some of this other work? So after reviewing this with Drew and Jessie and Diane, it was thought that this was a good time to really bring this position back in. Also, Diane is looking to retire in 3 years. So the intent possibly is that this person, as a planning zoning technician, could learn the job and potentially in 3 years move into that zoning position. So we're also trying to be foresightful and look at the future and what's going to happen.
Okay, Ms. Branson.
This potential position, it looks to me from the job description here that I'm reading over, that it's primarily all in the office. It's not out in the field. And having just been working so hard on the rodeo committee, I know that we're going to need a lot of more assistance with enforcement of the rodeos. I would like to see if we're adding a job position to have this person doing some weekends and helping with the enforcement of the rodeos. That would be a whole lot easier for me to say to hunt for the money for something that we sat vacant for years. If we could kill two birds with one stone. Is there a way we can do that, incorporate this into there?
I think we did have, as part of our job description, that there were opportunities based on experience for potential inspections. But I think bringing the weekend into it, and I'll let Becky speak to that, as it relates to getting somebody in for that, it might be difficult.
It could be. I mean, it's anything's possible.
Right.
This position would be part of the union. So I think that would be something that would have to be discussed along those lines as well. And here again, to start out, this position is more administrative. So I think maybe once that person maybe has that under their belt, maybe we'd be able to possibly send them in the field to do other things. But initially, it's definitely more administrative.
I just know that there's a really strong need for enforcement with the rodeos, and that's got to come from somewhere. It can't just be on our police department. And we have, building and zoning is supposed to be helping with some of that, and we've got to find a solution. And from the rodeo committee standpoint, it's a big issue because we can write all the ordinances and do all the work out there, but without enforcement, it's meaningless. So we've got to find a way to address that as a county board. And I would like to see it somehow, if we're going to put in another position, incorporate the two together.
Mr. Thornberry.
Deanna's asking for a rodeo up. Who keeps track? I know Drew's department handles the permits, am I correct?
Correct.
We have a regulation already on the books saying that all rodeo participants have to have, I'm assuming, a numerical number on their back while they're competing. Is that not true?
I think we're getting off.
Yeah, we're getting.
We're not.
Yes.
Still talking about this position.
This position, hold it. This position is not, that's not what this is about. This is a completely different, I understand where you're coming from. And I know exactly where you're headed with it, and I appreciate it. But I think we have to take a second here and realize that's not what this position is for. We're looking at, as our administrator said, we're looking at making sure that when people come into this building, they see a professional operation, that they see offices engaged in work, that they don't see dark offices and signs on the doors. So I think we're getting way off course here, but I do agree with what you're saying and I know where you're coming from. But I think that's a discussion on with yours too, Ms. Branson. I think I know where we're going. I'm not sure, matter of fact, I'm positive that this isn't that direction. So let's just keep our eye on the ball. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jess.
If I may, and Becky can stop me if I'm misspeaking, but if that was something that come up down the road, it's something that we could address and doesn't necessarily have to be in this budget piece, right? Something we could address as part of the discussion for the ad hoc committee.
As a separate position.
Yeah, or whatever may be. It's just that it can happen, doesn't have to happen as part of this.
Mr. Logson?
I ask this question every single time we talk about having a new hire. You got somebody in mind already?
No, I do not.
Mr. Thornberry?
I don't know how to ask this without getting in trouble again. But we have a situation already, and we're talking about, among other things, a job description. Were we not?
I think the job description was included just so you have an idea of what we're looking for as it relates to administration and what types of things the job would cover.
Okay, well, where I was coming from with this is part of his job description with what Drew's office is already doing, we have already set up a requirement that numbers have to be used. We have to have somebody that's going to take care of these and keep track of them, because I've already got a letter from somebody saying that when they sent in a FOIA request these numbers, they were told, we don't keep track of those, so we can't give them to you. If we don't keep track of them, what's the sense of using them?
I can just answer this question. I think the original idea was to have the applicant issue numbers and keep track of the contestants at these functions. It was never intended for the building department to actually issue numbers to the people.
Correct.
We're not saying the building department issue the numbers. It's just saying.
And guys.
I need track of those numbers.
The applicant was supposed to do that.
Just as a point of order, folks, we're here to listen to the building department and their planning department and their budget presentation. So again, we're going to need to keep our eye on the ball. All right. So Ray, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's no problem. Is there any other discussion? Well, I guess I'll throw it out there. We're talking about actually having a body in the room there where actually they can now be at home too. So let's keep that in mind. So anybody, any other discussion on this? Okay, I think Jake. Anything else to add, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you. 9.9 is the fiscal year 2024 Supervisor of Assessments budget presentation. Ms. Wellner, please.
Start your stuff.
9.8.
Oh, really quick.
No, wait, hang on.
Oh, did I skip one?
Get 9.8.
Skipped over building. Really, the new position was.
All right.
The new position was the only real thing in there. There's some unknowns with our plumbing and electrical inspectors. Right now, everything's working. Time's going to come where we're going to need a new electrical inspector, or if the state's going to decide that they're no longer going to do our plumbing inspections. So we want to budget for those just in case. And then the only other thing is the software maintenance, which is the cloud permit. I'm trying to get all of our software agreements in the general fund into the IT budget where they belong. So where you're seeing a zero there under the software maintenance, the 535.8, that's actually 13,000 that's moved into 85 into the IT budget. So I just want you to be aware of that. That's the only change there. So that's all I had.
Mr. Wolver?
Thank you, Mr. Larson. I just had a question for Ms. Tobin, because I knew this was coming up. So split wages 50-50, just for clarity, 19,760, or the dollar amount, is that amount split between the two departments, or is that the amount for each department? That was my question.
That would be the amount for each department on the high end. That's at that high range.
So
we had that.
like a $40,000 position is kind of what she initiated up front, but okay. So that's how you're getting the number. Okay. I just wanted some clarity on it. Thank you.
Any other on the building department budget? Sounds like you touched on the basic things.
Yep, I think so. Nope, that's it.
Okay, then on to 9, the supervisor of assessments budget presentation, Ms. Muller.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. These budgets, I'm here to take questions on the supervisor of assessment budget for 2024 and also the board of review budget for 2024. They just reflect, the numbers you have in front of you just reflect known increases in existing expenses within those departments, with the exception of a small amount set aside to replace some chairs. So if you have any questions about those numbers, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions or discussion? Excuse me, everyone's had time to cruise through the documents there.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks a lot. And 9.10, fiscal year 2024 GIS department budget presentation, Ms. Cox.
Hello. I think the only major thing I have on there this year, I have under other professional services, that's the aerials to be flown for the county. 3 years ago, we flew them with Winnebago. And by getting with them, we were able to save some money by flying at the same time. Unfortunately, I put in the 18,000. I've talked with Steve, Greg, and Sarah Stromberg, and they haven't gotten anything yet from QSERA. So we're just kind of adding in what it was last time. So I can't guarantee that's the exact amount, but that's all I'm using for now were my last numbers.
I could, so the new initiative on here would be coming from me, not from Tammy, requesting a salary adjustment for your GIS specialist and your GIS coordinator. You'll see that attached, and I have some other attachments with some comparables. Both of these positions, salaries do not reflect the market for these kinds of positions, and they haven't for quite a while. Requesting a $10,735 increase for the GIS coordinator and a $7,500 increase for the GIS specialist. The GIS fund is completely separate from the general fund. It does not affect or touch the general fund in any way. It is funded by boarding fee. People pay an additional $20, and out of that $20, 19 of it is required to go into the GIS fund for GIS related equipment and salaries. The current balance of that fund is almost $400,000. It should not be that high. That fee is supposed to be set based on need. And year after year, up until this year, because the interest rates are higher and there aren't as many recordings, but your revenue is considerably higher than your expenses. So I just want you to be aware that if you approve these increases, this does not affect the general fund, and the GIS fund is able to handle it. You'll see here under employee credentials, Ms. Cox's current salary is $49,265. She's been here 11 years. She has a bachelor's degree in geography with a GIS certification with over 20 years of GIS experience. Our GIS specialist has been here a little less than a year, but he brings a wealth of experience and knowledge. He was with the Sidwell Company for 6 years. He was a GIS technician in Peoria County for 3 years, and he also holds a bachelor's degree in geography, and his current salary is $42,500. I propose 60 for me and 50 for Scott. You'll see a salary comparable here. This is based, taken out of UCCI's 2023 salary survey. And Boone County is at the bottom of the barrel. The only one closest would be Stevenson at 54, and we're not quite sure how long that person has been there. But you'll see we're not even in the ballpark. So like I said, this is probably making Tammy awkward right now, but that is coming from me and not from her. But I know it would be much appreciated for both people in that department. They're pulled in all different directions from so many different departments, and they do a wonderful job.
No, Mr. Curry.
I would agree and echo Becky's statement. Anytime I've ever needed anything during, our political maps or whatnot, on top of all of the stuff that Tammy does, takes a call and helps us out and does a lot of work, and it's undervalued and works really hard. So I would agree.
Ms. Branson?
I agree. GIS, we all know they're fantastic. You walk in there and they'll bend over backwards to do whatever you need done and work under a time crunch every time and find out a way to make it happen. But I'm looking at roughly 50 to 60,000 for their salaries. And when you look at your GIS salary comparables, that still leaves us well below everyone else. Is that, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking that's not enough of an increase. Is there a way we can afford to give them more?
You can do whatever you want. No, I mean, I'm just.
I never thought I would say that, when it comes to county money, but they're grossly underpaid. And if you want to maintain your staff, you've got to at least be in the ballpark.
You got to look at the area involved.
Well, you do, but they're way underpaid.
Mr. Riley?
I look at it this way, at least we're moving in the right direction. We're not looking at a recession where we're cutting people's salary or laying people off. So again, I value everything that the department does as well, echo what Ryan said, but I think we're, as long as we're within our parameters of the money that's supposed to be spent in that, and we had a surplus and we need to do something with it, I'm behind it 100%. So I don't know anybody else's thoughts, but I think we're in the ballpark here.
Mr. Thornberry.
We're getting a lot closer.
Mr. Thornberry.
I would move to increase both of them by another 5,000 a year.
Mr. Thornberry.
I agree with what you got here, and I think this is where we should start. I don't think we ought to feed the lions just because we think it's the right way to go. I think we're moving in the right direction with this right here, and I think this is what we need to go with.
Ms. Branson?
I still think we should go up another 5,000 over what it's listed at. And I would move that we do so, but I'd need a second.
Ms. Branson has made a motion to, I don't even know I don't think we can actually do this like this. There's not a.
This is we're in a discussion period on this point, yes.
Well, then I'll withdraw the motion.
Something for staff to chew on, I guess.
Yes, some direction, but I'll.
Maybe if we could get a consensus maybe right now, if there's anybody else, or if we should possibly increase it even more than it's proposed. Ms. Patterson?
Well, I feel like we need to let staff do their jobs. So I with that, I think we start here. I think everybody is fabulous. So we start here and then it can be evaluated again. And if we're out of whack when new amounts come out next year or whatever, we can make adjustments as needed. But the recommendation was made for a reason by staff. We support our staff.
So, okay.
And anybody else want to chime in and amounts, Mr. Johnson?
I think I'm not, first of all, I think they certainly deserve raises and good raises. They do a fantastic job. But just a little bit of a reality check. Remember, this gets public and people look at the percentages and there's a 22% salary increase. So everybody's going to say, well, wait a minute, I'm grossly underpaid. I'm grossly underpaid. Why don't I get 20% or 22% or I should get 30%? So just understand when you do that, or you say, well, let's, add another $5,000, $10,000 or $15,000 even on top of that. It all has a ripple effect. So it's not just one person, one department that you deal with. Each department is going to see that and go, wait a minute. And not just departments. See all that on and on. Don't think for a second that in 3 years or 4 years when the FOP sits down at that table right there, they're not going to say, hey, let's talk about 22% raises. They will. They've done it. They did it when we had an administrator that hadn't gotten a raise in 4 years, and we gave him an 8% increase just to try and help catch him up to where he could have been or should have been. So they will do it. Just understand it has ripple effects. And I'm not saying it's not well deserved. Just understand what you're doing and the effects it has.
Mr. Riley.
With that, I agree with where you're coming from, Carl. However, at $49,000 for the job that she does, I don't think we're looking at apples to apples here. I really don't. And I have to agree with you on what the union's going to say, because you're absolutely right. But in this particular incident, I think we're right in the right ballpark, and I support staff here. So that's just my opinion. But.
Okay, well, it doesn't seem like there's any consensus to actually increase it more than what's been proposed, so don't know what to do about that. Anything else?
Yeah, it's discussion, so but something for staff to chew on. So.
Any other discussion about presentation or anything else to add, Ms. Cox? Or?
I think so. That's it.
I'm good.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
9.11 fiscal year 2024 animal services budget presentation. Mr. Barrett, please.
Really just a couple of significant things. If you look through the stuff that's before you, you'll see some stuff that's historically been paid out of the general fund or Fund 12, realigned to Fund 11, which is titled the Building Maintenance Fund. So started previously with Mr. Reed, him and I working on, certain ongoing expenses and what could and should be paid out of that fund, having to do with facilities maintenance and things like that. And it's continuing with Ms. Tobin, her and I working on furthering that. And then some stuff that had been moved over being moved back to Fund 12 again. So we're just trying to fine tune that a little bit. And then the other significant thing is we are in need of a vehicle replacement. For those of you who've been around for quite a while, you probably remember the animal rescue that lived across the street from here that was shut down by the state a number of years ago. And Animal Services received a Chevrolet Express van. Fresh Start was shut down, and that van has reached the end of its useful life. The van is deteriorated to the extent that I cannot keep rodents out of it. They come and go as they want. Unfortunately, some of them die, and so the van's taken on a dead animal odor that cannot be gotten rid of. And it just doesn't present the appearance that we would like to present to the community. And so I'm proposing a either new or used Ford Transit Connect. It's a smaller version of the van that the county got a few years ago. Still allow us to put some dog kennels in the back and some smaller cat boxes and wildlife cages on the sides and the other equipment that we use. And I see this type of vehicle being used by an officer that may be working, on a particular day doing, more like make contact with people stuff, and let the other officer who's going out and handling animal calls where they're more likely to impound things like that, taking the other one primarily. It's kind of how I see it. But they're available in the gently used and new here in our area for between 30 and 45,000. And I found several examples of such for you all to consider. And I believe this has been brought forward before for consideration and use of some ARPA funds as well. So I'm kind of hoping that we'll get some consideration there with regard to this vehicle as well. So, and I'll take any questions that you have.
I just want to bring up a couple of things too, if I could. You'll notice there are more items coming out of Fund 11, out of the Building Maintenance Fund. That is because the Fund 12, the Animal Services Operating Fund, no longer has the revenue to support all of those expenses. It's something that we're going to need to address at some point. I'm not saying it needs to be right now or this year, but we may need to look at some other funding avenues or possibly raising registration fees. I'm not sure. You'll notice under the Fund 12 expenses that in order to balance this budget in Fund 12, we cannot do any transfers to Employee Health Fund or to the general fund, as is usually done. If we're up to full staff, this budget includes 4 full-time people all year long, which Rick would love.
I would.
If that doesn't happen and there is funds, then obviously we would be able to make those transfers. But if it's full staff all year long, those transfers, there would not be funds to make those transfers. So I'm just saying, even though it is a balanced budget, there are some significant issues that need to be addressed.
Mr. Walber?
A few questions. So this goes along with, I guess, what you were referring to, Ms. Tobin, but is that why there's like a 55% reduction in your proposal of the adoption fees? I mean, it's just not happening, or a little background on that?
Yeah, slower this year than in times past. Not as many. I mean, we're taking in animals. It's just a lot of them because of necessity, the animal specific needs. A lot of them were going to rescue groups and fosters rather than the adoption process, just because the animals some of these animals, a lot of them have unique needs where they need that type of an environment, people that have, experience and resources to accommodate those animals' needs. And of course, that reduces our adoption income, somewhat significantly.
Question. Certainly support your request on the vehicle. I think it's very reasonable of what you proposed here. I don't see that. Is that in the budget here? What line item is that under? I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's not in here. That's a good question. That would be something for the board. There is funds available in your building maintenance, but that's really not what your building maintenance is designed for. So it really shouldn't. Honestly, that would probably have to be an ARPA request or out of there, most likely.
Thank you.
Riley?
Regard to fees, Rick, Are we pretty, I'm talking about, if your dog is caught out, are we pretty compatible with our fee structure right now? Or are we higher, lower, or about the same as everybody? Just a general question.
I think like reclaim fees and things like that. Yeah. Reporting, we're, in the vicinity of our neighbors. We have had neighbors that have raised the registration fee, including some of our neighbors that also receive significant parts of their budgets through property taxes and municipality fees. And what I mean by that is jurisdictions receive an annual bill for the services done in their jurisdictions, which we don't do that here in Boone County. And even some of those places where they do that, they're still raising their registration fees. And I think is something that's really going to have to be strongly looked at for implementing raised registration fees for 2024. The registration fees wouldn't really coincide with the budget year necessarily. Usually, when you start a new calendar year, then the registration fee would coincide with that. So,
Mr. Curry,
we have an issue right now with people not registering their dogs, correct?
That's a problem everywhere, sir. Sure. Yeah, compliance will never be anywhere close to 100%. I'm lucky if you get anywhere near 50%.
I guess the reason I say that is raising those fees, obviously during a time where it's already tough. It's obviously tough for us to operate. It's obviously tough to manage your budget. I understand it, but at all costs, I would recommend not doing that. I mean, we want to promote registering your animals. Raising that fee, making it more difficult is not going to help him. If we only have 1% that are doing it, this is for sure going to make it even more difficult and even less. So if anything, you lower the fee, you get more people to register their animals, and you'd have more money coming in than the 1% to promote that registration. That's how you get your revenue.
Sorry, go ahead first.
If you have something on the similar topic.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and we've talked about compliance. What can we do to get more people to comply? We've talked about some of the breeding kennels that, don't voluntarily come in and cough up, especially when those are unaltered animals and they have a lot of them. So it's definitely in compliance. Here again, having a full staff would help give him the opportunity to focus more on compliance as well.
One thing that we continue to do, and Mr. Curry, you've been here for as long as I have, you've heard me talk about the reminder letters that we send out, and for 59 cents for a postage stamp, we can get anywhere from $20 to $165, in return for that 59-cent stamp. And a few minutes of Kelly's time for each letter. It has helped significantly. It may be something that was done in the past. I really don't know. When Kelly and I came along and started processing rabies certificates, you'll see that there are people that won't register the pet, cat, or dog while they're at the clinic getting the pet vaccinated. They are supposed to come to the shelter then and do that, but a lot of them won't. And so we, for the 59 cents, here's a friendly reminder, take care of this. It has paid off. You've made thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that we wouldn't have if we hadn't implemented that, and certainly there are other other things that need to be looked at in trying to improve compliance.
Mr. Walbert?
Yeah, I guess staying along the lines of these fees for dogs and cat registration. I mean, you're showing revenue for 6 months. I mean, you're right at 50%. You're not showing the last 3 months, right? June, July, and August, which are your summer months. I guess just looking for your opinion here on this. Are those kind of big months where people would come in and register in the summertime? I mean, are you thinking we're gonna, pick up that additional 50,000 over the 3 months that aren't reported here, or what's your gut tell you? I mean, you obviously know kind of where we're at, maybe.
On paper right now, it almost looks like we're going to come up a little bit shorter than we have in the last 2 or 3 years. In the previous years that I've been here, which has not been a long time, I just had my three-year anniversary last week, so it's not been a long time, but at middle of December, Mr. Newport takes out $30,000 out of the animal services budget historically, and that drops us into the red, and then we'll spend the rest of, the next maybe 9-10 months to get back to black, and then end up, maybe positive 25, 30,000, something like that at the end of the fiscal year. And then 2 weeks later, back in the hole again. Right now on paper, it looks to me, and I think Ms. Tobin would agree, that we're probably going to come up shorter this year than we have in the past. Compliance with the registrations fluctuates. Some years they have a good year, sometimes not so good. It's kind of the nature of things. We pursue those compliance things whenever we can. Every time we go on a call involving a dog or a cat, one of the things that we ask, need to see your rabies vaccination paperwork, and have you gotten the pet registered? And if not, then they're given a period of time to take care of that. Because that is where most of our budget comes from. Something along the lines of about 96-97% of our budget comes from those things. So that's something that Kelly, myself, and the officers, when I have them, work on every single day.
Branson?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a feasible thing to do or not, but I'm going to run it by you anyway. When I was on the board before, the county had police cars, that we buy every year. We buy more and more police cars. And when the police are done with them, if they reach a certain age, they take the decals and stuff off of them. And some of those get used for other county administration and other department heads for uses that they need. Would it be feasible to implement a policy where at least one of the vehicles that you buy each year is a van, or even every third year or something, so that eventually it would go down where that could be the van that eventually goes to animal services, so that we don't have to keep coming up with, $50,000-$60,000 to keep buying another van because there's wear out? I mean, is that the sheriff's department?
I could even touch that. I don't think the sheriff really needs a van. Like, they actually really need a van because they're putting animals into it. And
No, I don't mean that they're using it for putting animals in while the sheriffs are using it. I'm just trying to.
Oh, no, that's not what I'm saying.
With a sword.
Sheriff doesn't need a van to begin with, though.
I'm just wondering.
Right.
I don't know if there's a way he could use one for something,
Vehicle. I mean, we have them paddles. Rick wants them.
Well, she's saying, could you buy a van instead? I don't think you're.
No, we have some transport vans that actually might be okay for Rick.
Yeah, I'm trying to recycle from one department down to another.
Hundreds of thousands of miles on them when we get rid of them, so.
So it's just not a feasible option.
No, not for what, like.
Not for what he needs them for.
The vehicle he's talking about now is about where our transport vehicles are, so he wouldn't be upgrading at all.
Okay. It's just a thought.
No, that's understood, but yeah, as the sheriff just explained, it's probably not feasible to try to do this like that. But Mr. Thornberry?
We used to do that before. I was told we don't do that anymore. Because I know when I was on the board the last time, we used to have a parking lot out here full of vehicles that we used for different things between us and the health departments. And at one time we gave, I don't remember if it came from the sheriff's department or where it came from, but we had a Suburban, I think it was a Suburban, that we did give to the animal services to replace one of their vehicles that was wore out. But like I said, I was told we don't do that anymore, so. We don't have any cars out there anymore.
I believe I remember what you're talking about. I don't believe it lasted very long after the animal department got it.
They usually don't because they were out in the first place. Yep.
probably relate to that. It was Sheriff Worth's 2005 SUV, and you could only put one cage in it. And I mean, it worked at the time back then, almost 20 years ago, but it's not feasible for multiple animals or if there's, anything else. It worked back then, but I don't think it would work now.
For whatever it's worth, the full-size transit that we have now, and I believe the county got it in 19. It was before I got here. I think it was 19. So roughly 4 years of use, and the van has about 35,000 miles on it. If you do the math, it works out to less than the normal driving of an average American, which I think for insurance purposes works out to 12,000 miles a year. The average person drives, and we're using it less than that. 150,000 miles is normal replacement for fleet vehicles. So, we're looking to get another 100,000+ miles out of the van that we have now. The Chevy that we're hoping to replace, it's
something to think about.
139,000 miles on that thing now, and it has become maintenance intensive, and it's just going to get worse. I respect what you're saying or whatever. I guess I just wanted to convey it. I think we're getting using the asset to the best that we can and getting like maximum use as lightly as possible, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I'm not.
They're not like sitting. Our vehicles aren't idling, so they do tend to last longer than police patrol vehicles, where their vehicles may idle for 12 hours a day. Ours aren't. Our officers go out, they do a call, and they come back, so they are getting used lighter. So I think if you're going to allow us to get a new vehicle, it could potentially last 8-10 years, maybe something like that. So you will, the organization will definitely get a good value out of it to allow us to get that.
Okay. So, any other discussion on the animal services budget? Okay, don't see any.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
On the 9.12 fiscal year 2024 Highway Department budget presentation, Mr. Crone, did you want to speak on this or?
So the highway department, we have 4 funds. We've got the highway fund, bridge fund, matching fund, MFT fund. So out of those 4 funds, 3 of them are levy funds. The other is MFT. At the pump, you get charged the fuel tax. So out of those 3 levy funds, the highway fund is our operational fund. Bridge fund, we share with the townships to pay for bridges, culverts, and grade separations. And then the matching funds we use to match against other grants. So that's our kind of our layout of our funds. A couple of the big changes is there was a correction to our interest rates. So you'll see our revenues have increased. I was extremely conservative on the interest rates, and we have some pretty high balances at the highway department in general. And our just kind of stepping back and looking at things with those funds, our fund levies are relatively very low compared to the other counties in the area. Our balances are very high. So, we've got very high balances, very low levies. And at some point, I think our levies have to increase. I should say, at some point, our levies do have to increase, and our balances can come down until we get to a kind of a consistent, where the levy pays for our needs. Currently, we're spending far more than our levies, and our balances are actually staying up pretty high. We've been pretty lucky to get a lot of grants. So we've had, it's like this year, talked about the corridor, the 3.7 million, 75% of that was grant funded, which is great. And we'll try to continue to do that. In general though, that's kind of the lay of the land for the highway department is that we've got those four funds, high balances, low levies. We've been supplementing with a lot of grants, and like I said, we'll continue to do that. And then the other big change in the landscape in the last few years is the motor fuel tax has increased substantially. So if you recall, 2019, the motor fuel tax at the pump doubled, and so that didn't give us 100% more. It gave us about 69%, 68% more in revenue for the motor fuel tax. So that's kind of the general feel of things. I at some point, I'm going to try to get some one pagers and get that a little more organized so you can have something in front of you. But that's where we're at. So, starting off with the highway fund, that's our operational fund. So that's where all of our salaries come from, equipment, maintenance, anything that we go towards operations to maintain our roadways. It doesn't go for our capital improvements of the roads. It does go for capital improvements of our facilities and our equipment, but nothing for roads or bridges. So this is our utilities, insurance, buildings, salaries, all that sort of thing. We have 5 maintainers, full-time staff of 5 highway maintainers that go out on the roadway to work. And then we have myself in the office or out in the field quite a bit. But and then we've got part-time, 2 part-time, one's 0.7, one's 0.3. So we have basically a full-time office manager. And then we have a part-time assistant that just started coming on this year. And that grant will actually pay for his salary and mine to supplement that for the next year to 2 years. So the big initiatives with the highway fund I'll try to be real quick. I know we're had a lot tonight, but the big initiatives with the highway fund is our building. So we've got our barn that's kind of coming down. We've been planning for this. We've done a lot of work. We've done all the site work at no out-of-pocket cost. We've done it basically between projects, used a lot of millings from roads. And so we've brought across from Animal Services building, there's a vacant piece of land that we've brought up, raised it about 12 feet. We stripped the topsoil, raised it 12 feet, put some storm sewer, put some kind of infrastructure, basic infrastructure in, and we're ready to kind of proceed. The barn that we store our mowers and store multiple pieces of equipment in it's been load rated, and we're actually close to violating that on many occasions. And so we really need to look at long-term to replace that building. And we're to the point now where I've got it drawn up and we need to probably start proceeding. I've been planning on constructing that in 2025. So I'd like to, that's one of our initiatives is to get a formal set of plans to proceed with that 2025 construction. So that's probably one of the bigger initiatives. Some of the smaller initiatives with the equipment are stuff that we haven't been able to replace because of, quite honestly, it's been so high prices with some of the stuff that, some of the equipment that we've had a batwing mower and a mower that it's hard to find the equipment and it's such high prices. I think things have leveled off and prices don't seem to come down, but at least they're not going up and it's readily available. So, and this is stuff that's been budgeted in the past. And so we're going to start to do some of that replacement going forward. And so that money that we budgeted in the past is sitting there, and that's causing our highway fund to grow as well, because we're not using that. So that's the highway fund. And bridge fund, I'll go to that one next. The bridge fund is one that I really want to concentrate on. The highway fund is fairly stable, and I think we're in a good equipment replacement cycle, and I think we're getting pretty good with our operational fund. Bridge fund, on the other hand, is one that we definitely want to see that grow on the levy side, and just to stabilize it. we only have 150,000, I think, a year in that, and we're spending, $500,000 at least every year on that, if not more. A bridge, the bridge down at Poplar Grove was 2.1 million. Granted, 80% of that, so we're only on the hook. 80% was paid by grant, so we're only on the hook for 420,000. So, and then we had some other grants that we're able to tap into that with that too. So, but just in general, bridges and culvert work are expensive. I'll try to go quicker on this, but they're expensive. So I do want to increase that levy. So we've got the 5 bridges up in Boone Township that we're working on. It's Straight Road, County Line Road, Mill, Capron, and Denny. So those 5 bridges. We've got Woodstock Road Bridge that we're relocating, moving it further north, kind of straighten that out. So that's one that we're working on that's coming up. And then over the Mosquito Creek, we've got Shattuck Road that we pay 50% for, since that's a township bridge. Under state statute, our county bridge fund is split with the townships when they do a bridge project that is greater than 0.05 of their equalized assessed value of their township. So if their project is greater than 0.05, so they're, generally speaking, for some of the smaller townships, that could be a box culvert. For Belvedere Township, it's a bridge. So we split those costs with them when they do those projects. So we've got Shattuck Road that we have to replace in the next couple of years. Those 5 bridges, Woodstock Road, and then we've got. I just been talking to Bonus Township here recently. Bonus Township over the Piscasaw, they've got Marengo Road and Lawrenceville that are going to need to get replaced in the next probably 5 to 10 years. So we're working on those. So that's, once we get over this hump, it's and we're probably halfway there. 6 years ago, I was like, yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's a positive thing. And these bridges we're building are they're substantial structures that are designed 75, they'll probably last 100 years. So, and we're chopping off the largest structures first. So, I think we're in a good trajectory. It's just that I think we want to bring that levy up. And then we've got matching and motor fuel tax. And then just in general on the motor fuel tax, that's paying for our roadway work. Motor fuel tax has increased substantially, the balance, primarily because of the motor fuel tax increase. Plus we had the Rebuild Illinois fund that is commingled in there. Next year we plan on doing, if you recall, I've been talking about, we've hit our structural needs of our roads. So our roads have got the thickness that we need to have larger vehicles on. Now we need to work on the width, and that's what we started doing out here on Poplar Grove Road. And so as we go forward, we're going to try to gain width on these to make them safer. And if there's a lot of distracted drivers and that sort of thing, so if we can get that width out there, and then plus we'll do some intersection improvements as we go. So next year's initiatives for motor fuel tax are Caledonia Road, the south segment, so 76 up to 173. Hunter Road, which Winnebago County is going to do Elevator Road, which is the extension of Hunter Road. They're going to do that next year. So we're going to be doing our section next year as well of Hunter Road over to 76. IDOT actually is planning on using our Hunter Road when they redo 173. So I'm kind of working with them, trying to get some money out of them as part of their detour route. So that's kind of on the burner that we're going. That's not next year. That's a few years out. And then the other third project, so we got Caledonia, Hunter, and the third project would be Garden Prairie Road, so north of 20. So those are our 3 initiatives for MFT. Tried to go through real quick, and that's kind of the lay of the land and what we have for initiatives. I don't know if you have anything else, Becky, on what went through real fast.
Go ahead.
Mr. Munger.
When you buy equipment, can you purchase at an auction? Like if there's, let's say you had a batwing mower and there was one at a local farm auction, do you have the ability to do that, or do you have to go through proposals and all that?
We always, the statute gives us a $30,000 limit before we have to get competitive bids. And honestly, like our motor grader that we bought last year for 300, well, we just bought it. It just arrived this year. We bought that for $330,000. I could turn around and sell that today for probably close to $500,000. You know, we get government discounts and all sorts of things that happen, that if we get on and Winnebago County tried doing this, if you get on a pretty tight schedule, you can keep new equipment, you know, not have the higher maintenance and turn around and sell it or trade it in. Most of our equipment that we're getting to the point where we can probably start doing that. We've got enough newer equipment in that we could probably start doing that. We haven't got rid of all the old stuff yet. So what I've been doing is with the old stuff is I've been offering that I do an optional trade-in. I've been offering that to the townships and in other jurisdictions within Boone County. But yeah, as far as buying stuff from an auction or something like that, we've done that for not our primary pieces of equipment. Like we wouldn't do that for a plow truck, but we've done that for, actually we bought some cones just recently on auction, you know, a pallet of cones or something like that. But generally speaking, our big primary piece of equipment, we don't do that.
Just for information. Thank you.
Mr. Curry?
What stops us from selling that for $500,000 and making $167,000?
I wonder that all the time. I don't know. I would like to get into a tight cycle. You know, there, like I said, Winnebago was trying to do that, but they were doing that on a lease basis and it didn't work. But yeah, I think right now what would stop us is buy. If I turned around and sold that $330,000 140 Cat, I wouldn't be able to get another one for probably 4 years. And by that time, it'd probably be $500,000 for me to buy it. So I think the supply is the problem right now. But if when supply stuff gets squared away, gosh, I think we could get on a tight enough schedule where we could sell it for what we paid for it and just keep that rotation going and never have any additional capital costs. And I think that is doable. So
thank you.
Ms. Tobin?
I was just going to say, as far as the levy increases, that's definitely something you will discuss as a board at a later date. You're just seeing, you know, for the first time what his request is and if it's possible. So as I start to work on the levy and bring you some numbers and what your cap is and then what level of comfort, if at all, you want to raise that levy, that'll be a discussion for a later date. But we just wanted you to see his initial request.
And I think everything is, you know, there's nothing really, completely outstanding on this. I would say that we are doing a little more as far as our road work goes than probably we did maybe 5-10 years ago. But we have been kind of creeping that up. And so, and primarily, like I said, so this year was our first year that we started widening. 2 years ago is when we finished our depth. And so, we're widening out, and when we widen out, depending on what technology we use, we're using cold in place, which actually should prevent the cracking from coming through and should actually give us a longer pavement. Right now, we're probably at a 12 to 15 year cycle. I'd like to get that cycle, if we can get that to 15 to 18 years, that's even, that'll save us too in the long run. And I think that's possible. So, but yeah, that's kind of the general. I don't know if I missed any other initiatives or not, but that's where we're at.
Okay. Any questions, discussion? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
Doesn't look like there's any report or updates on the landfill.
Covered correspondence.
There's a correspondence item on there. Reopening of the bridge that was already discussed. And any update from the UCCI or any other secret group?
Right now.
Already need for executive session.
Yes, we do need an executive session tonight for 12.2 collective bargaining and 12.3 for personnel. So I'd entertain a motion for that.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, pending litigation.
Oh, pending litigation. Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
All right, so we have 12.1, 12.2, and 12.3. Who made the motion?
Ryan Curry did.
Curry made the motion, second by Mr. Thornberry. Any discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call. Rodney Riley, yes. Ryan Curry?
Yes.
Ryan Schneider?
Yes.
Ray Larson?
Aye.
Brett Mueller?
Yes.
Tom Wahlberg,
Yes.
Alyssa Patterson,
Yes.
Dana Logston,
Aye.
Sherry Branson,
Yes.
Carl Johnson,
Yes.
Marion Thornberry.